In my mind, I thought, sweet, every second person in the eastern suburbs at the time does cocaine. Started doing it, realised that the operation was a lot bigger than what was played out. But at that point, I was already in it, and I thought, you know what, stuff it.
Eastern Suburbs events planner is the seventh person charged this week over the Dial a Drugs dealer syndicate. 24-year-old Danielle Hogan was arrested at her North Bondi unit yesterday.
Your headlines were glamorous Eastern Suburbs drug dealer arrested, so yeah, that's going to attract attention.
And this is what every drug dealer tells themselves, or I'll just save X amount and then I'll get out, or I'll do something with this money. But in hindsight, going to jail was literally the best thing that ever happened to me. I feel like if I wasn't arrested, if I wasn't persecuted, I would either be a junkie or I'd be dead.
Today, I spoke to someone who has seen a lot in her relatively short life. I sat down and had a chat with Danielle Hogan. She has a complicated story. We talked about her childhood, growing up in the very posh Sydney suburb of St Ives, and how, as a teenager, she was sexually assaulted. She reported the matter to police, but the court matter just caused her more emotional damage. She acknowledges that experience changed her as a person. Not in the best way, but in a reckless and selfish way. That led to her making poor life decisions. She was living the high life as a party girl, making money as a member of a large-scale drug syndicate operating out of Bondi. She was arrested, and in hindsight, the arrest was probably the best thing that could have happened to her. The media described her as a glamorous cocaine dealer, which made her an obvious target in prison. She was sentenced to 3 years and 10 months. And learned a lot about herself during her incarceration. She told me how she survived in prison and how it forced her to look critically at her life. And also about what she's doing now, working for Confit, which is a fitness business run by ex-prisoners. And the work that she's doing with a new business called Inside Out. Danielle Hogan, welcome to I Catch Killers.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you. And I know you've had, the way I would describe an interesting life. You've had your highs, you've had your lows. Did you ever think, and this is a hard question first up, but I'll throw you in the deep end, that being arrested by police may have been the best thing that happened to you?
Look, until it happened, I never would have thought it would have been the best thing that happened to me. But in hindsight, going to jail was literally the best thing that ever happened to me. Yeah.
What do you reckon your life could have been like if you weren't arrested at that stage?
To be honest, upon reflection recently, I feel like if I wasn't arrested, if I wasn't persecuted, I would either be a junkie or I'd be dead.
Okay. So you wouldn't have learnt your lesson?
Absolutely not.
It's funny, I speak to a lot of people, and sometimes the worst thing that happens to you in your life can turn around and be a positive thing.
Absolutely. I never really saw it as the worst thing that ever happened to me. I feel like so much other shit happened to me prior to that were the worst things that ever happened. But this was kind of like my saving grace. This was my opportunity to turn things around.
Okay. And it certainly gives you a time to reflect when you're sitting in a prison cell.
It gave me a year and a half to reflect, so I'm reflected.
You can look very deep inside yourself when you're locked in a cage, basically.
Absolutely.
So how does a girl from St Ives end up in jail? Because if people don't know St Ives, obviously you grew up there. I'm aware of the area. I describe it as a posh area, a lot of money there, and even people would, when they pronounce St Ives, St Ives.
St Ives.
Yes.
Look, while I can completely agree with you, it's a very wealthy, posh kind of area. There is still such a highlighted crime rate amongst sort of like North Shore area. And that's more or less where I grew up in. So while my private school principals and teachers would be very disappointed in me, I feel like, this was, like we said before, this is probably one of the best things that actually happened to me. And it wasn't necessarily a byproduct of my environment or, what I grew up with, because my upbringing was fantastic. I cannot fault, where I grew up, who I grew up with. However, I feel like things just started happening to me, unfortunately, and from there I kind of spiraled.
Okay. And with, like, I heard you talk in another interview that you did, and you were saying about, and this is not slamming all people that live at St Ives, but quite often where the parents have got, their professions and all that, they're not giving the attention to the kids that perhaps they should be. You're sending your kid to a private school, therefore I must be a good parent, and take the eye off the ball a little bit.
I can completely agree with that, and I'm really glad that you raised it because, look, I before moving to North Shore, I was growing up in Ryde, right? Yep. So kind of like middle class area, really cool. You know, kids would go door to door on weekends. It was very much like an open community. And so from there, look, my parents did the absolute best they could and broke their backs to give my sister and myself the best opportunity and the best lives that they possibly could. And to them, that meant sending us to the North Shore, going to private schools, spending all of their finances on, you know, the finer things, schooling, extracurricular activities, that kind of thing. And while I can't fault that, because to anyone that would look like, you know, that's what's going to breed success, unfortunately, it didn't. We were, like I said, we were a middle class family that was trying to fit into a society where we didn't necessarily belong. But the craziest thing to me throughout that, I think it was like a 5 or 6 year process, was like we were this average family, you know, grew up in Ryde, watched like Saturday morning TV, you know, had hash browns, like everything was so cool, calm and collected. And I had all of these girls that I was at school with that had all the wealthy families and, you know, the trips overseas during school holidays. They were envious of my family. Right. And I would never for the life of me understand why at the time. But now I do. Putting it into perspective, their parents gave them presents. My family gave me presents. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, so mum and dad were there 24/7 for anything that I needed. They were...
Stronger connection.
Exactly right. Till this day, they're still there constantly. You know, we're such a strong family unit. And that's the first thing that I noticed growing up in the North Shore is that, you know, while the finances were there and the parents could, you know, push them to anything or take them overseas, whatever, they weren't there. They weren't a family unit. There was no trust. There was no real connection. So, yeah, having some of my closest friends at such a young age being like, oh, we love your mum, we love your dad, like, you know.
Because there was more of a family unit connection. And
for the life of me at the time, I couldn't understand why. I was like, why, bro? Like, your family's taking you to Hawaii. I'm going to Terrigal. But now, in retrospect, like, that's all I could have asked for. Like, that's all, to me, growing up as a child, that's what you need. You need both parents, hands on deck. You need parents that genuinely care. Till this day, my dad helps me write resumes, freaking public talks, like helps me do the most, and that means so much more than, you know, financial gain. And
so with what you've been through, and I know you've paid tribute to your family, the support that you got, they never abandoned you when you're in trouble and embarrassing the family name, and they still hung in there with you.
Oh, you have no idea. We got calls from literally England, from family members over there saying, do you know that your daughter Danielle's like currently on the news for selling drugs?
Right.
So yeah, the embarrassment didn't stop for many years, but my family always from day dot saw so much in me, saw so much, saw my potential, saw that, you know, everything that I was going through, unfortunately, was horrible. All the years that I encountered of so much bullshit, but they always knew within them that I was going to come out on the other end, or that there was there was reason behind what I was going through, and that's what I'm living now. Yeah. So,
and the importance of having that family support, and I'm sure you saw it when you were in prison, that people with support on the outside, what a difference that can make.
And that's exactly why I do what I do now, and the values that I live by, and the business that I've started now. And the reason that I'm with businesses that I work with now is because every single day in there was a reminder that I am so much luckier, I'm so much more fortunate than 90% of the women in there. You know, I would wait 15 minutes in line for phone calls in jail, and you'd naturally watch everyone, you know, that's jumping on the phones, and half the time they'd have no one to call. You know, they'd pick up the phone, some people wouldn't answer, or they're calling friends that they've known for 5 minutes. There's no support on the outside. And so this is why it really gave me the drive to start what I do now, into creating a supportive community for women that are going through what they're going through.
We want to, and I want to talk very deeply about what happens in a women's prison and how there's a neglect. And I came to the realisation of that sitting down, having people on the podcast. And we always, the perception of jails is are filled with men, and we've all seen the jail movies and everything else that's in our head, but we don't often think about women in prison, and there's a neglect there. But we'll talk about that later on. And I just want to say in prison, and we'll have a deep dive into it, you going into prison, growing up where you did, with the media that you had, I reckon you probably had a tough time when you first went into prison, because it's not an environment that you would have been familiar with or ever expected yourself to be in.
That's exactly right. Look, the media attention was literally a sentence in itself.
Yeah.
The thing that really upset me the most about that is all of the headlines, everything that was put out was so bullshit.
Yep.
To the point that not only was it embarrassing for me, I didn't mind that because I was the one that committed the crime. So I was like, fuck it, whatever, I'll wear it. But the fact that it then created, you know, issues for my family, it was embarrassing.
Yeah.
You know, there were certain things like, oh, glamorous Bondi influencer, this, that, the other, with her, spent all the drug money on her designer bags, whatever. I shop at Kmart. Like, it's not, they made such a big deal out of it to the point where I even remember the arresting officer, well, one of the arresting officers, as he was putting handcuffs on me, apologized and said, we're literally going to make an example out of you.
Right.
You know, because the media, the news, they're so sick of seeing, let's say, men from Western Sydney suburbs.
Yeah.
They're sick of seeing, you know, XYZ for selling drugs.
Yeah,
so of course,
doors knocked in and the police raid, and then you're dragging someone.
They wanted an, you know, above average looking girl from eastern suburbs.
Yep.
They wanted that. They wanted that clickbait.
Well, your headlines were glamorous eastern suburbs drug dealer arrested, so yeah, that's going to attract attention, but that would have put pressure on you going into prison, and also, it's not an environment you'd be familiar with. I sit opposite people. I came in contact with people, and I know people that realised very early in their life that at some point in time they were going to end up in prison, so they prepare themselves mentally for it. That wasn't the case with you. So we will take you there, what it felt like when you were arrested, but we'll find out a little bit more about your life. So growing up, moved from Ryde over to St Ives, competing with the people in the high income area of St Ives. Describe your childhood.
Before moving to North Shore, my childhood was beautiful. Honestly, I can't fault it.
Yep.
You know, everyone says trauma derives from childhood.
Yeah.
And this is what has confused me throughout so many years of my life. I'll sit with counsellors, therapists, whatever, and everyone's saying, no, your trauma's from childhood. I'm like, no, it's not. Like, my childhood was awesome. I had such a loving mum and dad that would go to any extent to see myself and my sister happy. I was the best kid ever, and my parents will say that. Any adult that was around me until 14, 15 will say, you know, she was such a loving, open, outgoing girl. From the second that I could speak, I would speak to anyone about anything. You know, I just had such a love for life, and I definitely learnt that off my mom and dad.
Yeah.
So we'd be sitting at restaurants and like if I was babbling, I would just want to chat.
Yeah.
Because I would see the innocence in everyone. I would see, you know, that the world was actually such an amazing place. I was so inclusive. So when I moved to these private schools, I brought that inclusivity with me. You know, I was seen as like the popular girl, and yet I would want everyone sitting with us in a massive circle at lunchtime because all I wanted was for everyone to feel seen, heard, and loved, right? So that continued until I think year 8. I was then sexually assaulted, and then at that point, my life completely turned upside down.
It stole your innocence.
Absolutely, it did. So,
I asked before we started the podcast when we were having chat the other day, and you said it's all right to talk about it. But,
absolutely.
How old were you, and what do you care to tell us about what happened?
Yeah, so I was 14, I think, 14 or 15. So what had basically happened, I was at this point in time, I had moved schools. I was in year 8, so I was at a performing arts school, doing what I love, which is dancing. So, you know, that innocence was so still very much there. And I was at an under 18s event one night, dancing away, doing what I love. I was with my best friend, whatever else. We met these guys, and in my head I thought, oh, it's nothing, you know, they're friends. I was at a co-ed school at the time, so I thought, you know, boys are boys, they're nothing, whatever. So started chatting to this bloke that lied about his age, and wanted to meet me one day at Westfield close by to my school. I honestly thought nothing of it. I thought, you know, this happens every day. I go to school with boys, you know, we have a friendship, whatever. Anyway, there were several of us there, and look, push came to shove, and then, you know, as perpetrators do, let's go for a walk, let's do this, let's do that. So, yeah, went for a walk in the park. There was several of us, like I said, and then, you know, flies started sort of dropping off. I think everyone started reading the room except for me. And, yeah, I was left to my lonesome with 2 men. And from there, yeah, it just turned into my worst nightmare. And I didn't really understand what had happened until several days later. So I actually called my friend that was actually there several moments before it happened. I called her and I said, I think I've been raped, but I can't, I don't know.
Yeah. You
know, I was almost frozen to the fact. You know, the amazing thing about my family is that, but it's also a downfall. I grew up in a family where the world was so perfect. Everything was so amazing. Innocence, right? So we didn't talk about real shit.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about when bad things happen, what do you do? So something bad had occurred to me and I didn't know how to handle it because I didn't know, A, if it was my fault or if it was actually as bad as what I thought it was.
Yeah.
So I kind of kept it hidden. And then maybe I think it was about a month later, my PE teacher pulled that same girl aside and said, Danielle's not acting normal. Has something happened? And my friend at the time broke down into tears and said, you know, she called me and said XYZ happened. And then the PE teacher pulled me aside that afternoon and said, has something happened to you? And I said, I think so, but I don't know. Maybe I asked for it, maybe, and this is the problem, right?
That's the insidious thing about sexual assaults.
Correct, and
especially with young victims.
Exactly, none that have ever been through that before.
Yeah.
I unfortunately lost my virginity to these people. So in my mind, I was like, is it their fault? Is it my fault? I don't know. So anyway, ended up telling my PE teacher. She told the principal. I got pulled into the principal's office, and while they were so decent about the ordeal and were like, we're here for you, they said, look, we're giving you the opportunity to go home and tell your family. Otherwise, in the next 24 hours, we have to tell the police, we have to report this.
Mandatory reporting.
Exactly right. So I thought, okay, no, I don't want that, because there was that shame element in the back of my head still, right? So I went home. Funnily enough, I actually don't remember this. My family have told me ever since. So I went home. I think I texted my older sister and I said, something bad has happened. You need to come home now. I need to tell you.
Yeah.
And I told her, and then she did the same thing. She texted my mum and said, something's happened to Danny. You need to come home. My parents work sort of like 9 to 5. So they were like, she said, you need to come home now. You need, like, Danny has to tell you something. They both came home and I said, I don't want to tell Dad. And again, that falls back on that whole shame element of like, I don't want to disappoint my dad. I don't want him to, my dad was my best friend at the time, so, and still is. So I said, I don't want Dad hearing about this. So I told Mum what had happened. And then immediately Mum was like, nope, let's call the police, da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
Report was made. And then, found ourselves in court.
How did that play out for you? Because it's traumatic, isn't it? And the way you just described that, I think you took everyone into that situation you find yourself in. You don't even know what's happened. You're young, you're innocent, and that's happened. And then the wheels start turning. You've spoken to people. Obviously, it had an impact on you. Other people noticed. And then you go to the police. You've got to relay the whole story to the police. And then the matter goes to court. How was that whole experience for you?
And that was, honestly, that was the hardest part. So that was the first time I had faced the judicial system. And honestly, it let me down. So you hear, like, well, now in my line of work, but prior to that, I've had so many encounters with friends at such a young age that have said that they've been through something similar. And I'm like, dude, that's assault. Like, that's rape. Yeah. But there's so many women that aren't willing to share their stories or go to police about it. And I hate to admit it, but I actually understand why. So at such a young age, we took it to the police. The report was made. We went through the whole sentencing situation. But because of, unfortunately, that same friend of mine at the time lying about where she was and lying about the day and what had happened, it turned into this entire, although there was CCTV footage and, everything was kind of proven, except the initial assault, it turned into, the defendant's representatives basically saying to me, why are you lying about this? Why would you put that upon someone? Why would you ruin someone's life? And I was 15 at this point. I don't know how to handle that. Yeah. So I'm not answering questions in the way that was deemed necessary. I completely shut down. I was made out to be a liar. And that broke my heart. So unfortunately, the abusers weren't even charged. I think at best they received AVOs.
But when you say charged, they weren't convicted.
They weren't convicted. Yeah. They weren't convicted. Yeah. So, like I said, at best they received AVOs, and that was just such a kick in the mouth to me at such a young age, because I thought the system that was supposed to protect me, the one place that I was so scared and so vulnerable being in, pretty much turned against me, saying that, no, you're a liar. No, this is that. That's not really what happened. So in my mind from there, honestly, that just changed me as a person. That made me feel like, what's the point in being honest anymore? What's the point in being vulnerable? What's the point in being this loving person that just, this young girl that loved everyone, that loved life? Because fuck it, look at what happens when I am. Yeah. So that was honestly the turning point in my life.
And with that, you could recognise that you changed your complete outlook on life.
100%. I went from this girl that was so trusting and loving and positive to just, no, I'm here for myself. I'm selfish. I'm whatever. It doesn't matter anymore. And the saddest part of that was I wholeheartedly respected myself. There's, at that 14, 15 age, unfortunately, there's so many girls that are losing their virginity. Yeah. When you don't have the maturity to do so. And I held on to that. I was proud of that. But then after that had happened, look, the way that I see it, and in my experience, when people are sexually assaulted, it goes one of two ways. You either lose all your self-respect, all your personal space. You don't give a shit about your body, who you are as a person, your identity, or you're completely caged in. You don't let anyone in. You're terrified of life. I've seen this for the last few years now. I went the first way. Right. I no longer cared. I had in my mind, I was stripped of my identity, my respect, my everything. So from there, I was carnage. Like I was mad at the world.
And no respect for yourself and reckless in life choices and
nothing. I thought, fuck it. It's almost as if I tried so hard for so many years to be this person, this loving, genuine human being that cared about everyone else. And I was the problem solver at school, right? Everyone would come to me when they had issues. And so as soon as I had an issue, as soon as something had happened to me, I was going, well, who's there?
Yeah.
What's the point anymore? So it's almost, I flipped a complete 180. I just became this entirely different version. My parents literally called me an alien. Like I was, completely different.
Well, at that age too, like it's such a difficult age in life, isn't it?
You're forming your identity.
Yeah, and so you have something that happens like that, and the impact it's had on you. It's and I can see the emotion in your face when you talk about it. How you carry that with you.
I've definitely dealt with it. I'm upset only because I let one event determine the next 10 years of my life.
Yeah.
Who I am, how I carry myself, how I let others treat me. I let one bad thing determine those next few years.
It's almost like low self-esteem.
It was wholeheartedly
what you're describing.
I lost everything. I was teachers and parents and friends and everyone will testament to this. Like I was the most confident, outgoing, didn't give a shit about what anyone thought.
Yeah.
I hadn't had all these layers of judgment and pressure and everything, responsibility. I had none of this stuff placed upon me yet. So it's like as soon as that initial event had happened, it's like everything came with it.
Yeah.
So I turned into this shell of a human being. And then that, it literally relayed how everyone was going to treat me for the next few years, what I allowed for the next few years.
Yeah. Describe those years, like how reckless, like.
Horrifying. This is where mental health became so alarming to me at this point. Before then, depression didn't exist, anxiety didn't exist, PTSD didn't exist, nothing. All that existed prior to that was like confidence, motivation, what you could expect off of a child, innocence, right? So now all that was there was like constantly trying to prove to other people that I'm not a victim, that I'm okay. So it meant putting on a facade, and I was put through, from that initial assault, I was put through 4 different schools, and that was in the space of 2 years.
Is that how reckless you became?
Extremely.
Yeah.
Extremely. I'm not about to blame it on external forces, saying that it was other people. Obviously, I was around, all of these people that had mummy and daddy's money, but they were also going through shit.
Yeah.
And this is the one thing that I can't stand about the North Shore, is that everyone thinks just because it's a wealthy area doesn't mean things go on. So much shit goes on, but everything's pushed down, everything's pushed out, everything's forgotten about. Why? Because they've got money, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
They can afford counsellors. They can, everything is pushed away.
And without being critical on people that can live in those areas, I think the perception of how others see them is very important as well, because a lot of it is flashy money and look how our life's perfect, and presenting that. Exactly.
And in turn, to be honest, like that's exactly what happened to me. Everyone was seeing this, and it says it in those freaking headlines on the media. Like everyone looked in as this Danielle, party girl, live this lavish life, whatever else. So I almost got to that point where I thought that was my identity. So I wouldn't settle for anything less than, meaning everyone saw me as this fun, outgoing girl years before. So I had to maintain that by any means. And that meant taking drugs. That meant doing whatever I could to get back into that headspace so that everyone saw me as this fun, outgoing, life of the party, not this victim, not this girl that needed help.
That's what you were chasing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And honestly, I was chasing it until literally the day before I went to jail.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Relationships. You were in a relationship or a long-term relationship after this occurred, or?
I was. So just after my assault, maybe several months after that.
Yeah.
I obviously had the young, fun relationships, whatever else. And then I was just too much for these people, for these poor, these poor young boys. And then I had, look, unfortunately, and like upon reflection over these last few years, I realize now all I was looking for was a protector.
Yep.
Right? So I went looking for that. And of course, the first one I found was someone that was involved with bikie gangs, was someone that, like, the word protector to me meant someone that was obviously involved in the crime life, but would, protect me or his name by any means. I was looking for that really rough exterior, that, kind of thing. I'd never had that in my life before. And so I fell into what appeared to be a normal relationship, sort of at the age 16, 17. And it brought 8-9 years of domestic violence, like serious drug-induced, just interesting choices, the worst of the worst. And it wasn't a consistent, I think it was 9 years. I think it wasn't a consistent 9 years. It was on and off. But that relationship is what actually taught me the definition of domestic violence and narcissism. It was scary, something that I don't think I've personally dealt with fully yet, but something that has definitely driven me to be the person that I am now, the relationships that I want to have, and what I want to do for a career and help the women that I want to help, is because battling those years, you do not recognize it when you're in it. There were so many instances that from the outside in, I had family, I had friends reaching out, and I couldn't talk to them. I had phones taken away from me. I was kidnapped majority of the time.
That falls into this coercive control. Control. Yeah, legislation has started to come into play now for coercive control, because it's hard to define something when, you're choosing to be in this relationship and it's a toxic relationship, but you keep going back. But there's more to it, isn't there? There's a lot of layers to it. And
that's the hardest part. It's like, what do you determine as choice, though? When you're led to believe for years on end that you're nothing, that you're this small, that you're never going to amount to shit, that you're nothing better than that relationship. So no one else outside of that relationship is ever going to love you again. So immediately you start to believe that. I fell into this relationship, and the second that I was vulnerable with this person about my past and about what had happened to me, I received, so you've been raped. Well, no one else is going to love you again if you've been raped. That means you're dirty.
That's horrible, isn't it?
It's disgusting. Yeah. And the saddest part is that it is so common. Like in the work that I do now, I hear it constantly.
Yep.
This coercive control, it's such a rising matter at the moment. And it's because, to be honest, social media more than anything.
Yeah? How's that? Explain
in terms of Snapchat, for example, so your partner being able to see where you are 24/7 and that being normalized. Why should it matter where I am?
Yeah.
But the fact that it's just like a feature on Snapchat, that it's one of those things to do. No,
there is a lot of ways to control people that weren't readily available a couple of decades ago, isn't there?
Absolutely.
Just with the mobile phone. Before I'm going out, where I'll see you when I get home, but now the phone can ring at any time. Where are you?
Correct.
Who's that in the background?
Exactly. This whole thing of being able to reach people 24/7 and that being normalized, that's not normal. I remember being that friend that I'm out to dinner with my girlfriends and I'm constantly, looking at my phone as if to be like, I'm terrified for what message is going to come through in 60 seconds.
There's invariably one in the group like that, isn't it? You
Always.
Can see the person that's having a good time and then the phone goes and they're looking at the phone and
they're trying their best because while they can't acknowledge that they're actually in a domestic violent relationship, they're trying their best to step out of that normality and hang out with their friends. But you do not recognize when you're in it. You recognize that, oh, I'm in a relationship, and oh, he might love me so much more than their partners love their friends.
So passionate, and
because he contacts me 24/7. No, that's control.
Yeah,
that's control. I'm in a fantastic relationship now, and we live together. We'll go like 2 days without speaking, but that's normality. You know,
it's creepy from both sexes too. But like there's, and it's not the physical violence that can come into play with men being the perpetrators on women, but we've all got friends, as in the blokes, that that friend that's always in trouble with the wife or the partner. If they're out and getting the phone calls, where are you? What time are you going to be home? Blah,
and that's
blah, blah.
the sad reality. Like, unfortunately, I'd say my generation, to be honest, I'm going to take blame. I feel like we've somehow taken social media and turned it into this thing of like, women in particular, of, forever comparing themselves to other women online, or, not normalizing the fact that like male and female relationships can actually exist on like on a platonic level. So this whole obsession over females to their partners of, when are you getting home? Why did you follow her? Da 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 da. Like, there's no trust element anymore.
Yeah. And the type of relationship you're talking about too, and we talked about low self-esteem after what happened to you when you were sexually assaulted. That makes you vulnerable too. And if you've got the wrong person, they can exploit that. And it's almost like they've got a radar for exploiting your vulnerability.
That's exactly what it is. And I feel like I learnt the definition, and it's such an overplayed definition at the moment in terms of narcissistic behavior.
Yeah.
And I met a narcissist at such a young age, and I could never put a name or a label to it, but any male that can make you feel any male or female, any human that can make you feel so loved, and then in the same regard make you feel so small to anyone else, that's narcissistic traits. And it sucks, is because you then start to believe that this person is your be-all and end-all. So the saddest reality, right, was I lost my entire identity through that sexual assault. And then through those weird, awkward years, 14, 15, 16, of trying to figure out who the fuck you are, I was trying to rebuild that. And I unfortunately met this man, and he told me that everything that I thought was great about myself was wrong. I had to dress a certain way. My outgoingness, for example, was wrong. I was an immediate flirt, just because I was a confident girl. So I was led to believe that all of these things that were so positive in my mind, and that all of my values, I were made to believe were wrong.
That can be a mind fuck for you.
Oh, it did. It did for 8 to 10 years. Everyone was forever going, Danny, what's wrong with you? Like, you can, and because it wasn't a consecutive 9 years. It was, we would date for several months, something would happen, he would bash me, or he'd get hooked on drugs, I'd get hooked on other drugs, and then I would wake up to myself and have these realizations that, no, this is not my life. Like, I'd pull away, I'd return back to my family home, I'd have all of my friends say, this isn't you. Like, you know that your life path is so much bigger than this, And I would move forward, and I would progress, and just as I would get to that sweet spot, that really positive point in my life, he would come back every time of, I'm so proud of you, and you're such an amazing woman, and, I see where you're going with life. I just want to help you, and this is what I'm doing now. Oh, I'm not a junkie anymore. I have a job now. And
look, it's toxic, isn't it? And
it's ridiculous.
We all know those relationships, or been in relationships like that, and then it's exploiting the vulnerability and everything else that comes into play. But you've described it well, and I hadn't really put my mind to the social media aspect of it as well. But that's very much, people have you 24/7 now. You get no time to yourself if someone's trying to cling on to you or obsessed with you.
That's exactly right. It's just something that never turns off. Unfortunately, in this generation, even things like bullying, nothing turns off. Yeah. Fortunate for me, when I was at school, if you were bullied, you'd go home and call it a day. That was it. You're in your safe space. That was it.
Yep.
But now, social media is constant.
Well, I think of all the times I stuffed up as a kid growing up and the embarrassment, the instant embarrassment, but there wasn't photos of it and you weren't being reminded of it when you got home.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it has changed. It's a tough gig, isn't it?
Exactly right. And the same thing with relationships, unfortunately now people love to publicize their relationships or what they're going through, or if their partner's upset them or whatever else. Everything is just so forward facing. Like you can't escape it.
Yeah.
You really can't escape it unless you know that this is what you're going through. You can acknowledge that and then figure out steps to move forward. There's no escaping it.
And it's keeping self-worth with yourself too. That's an important part, that you're not defined by who you're in a relationship with or what they think of you. If you can hold that line, it's a pretty important line. Not always easy to do, but important line, isn't it?
I think it's about actually finding your self-worth, and this is out of every single value that I can think of, self-worth is the one thing that has stuck with me from being in jail till this day.
I forgot about the jail thing. We've probably got
yeah, she went to jail.
We've probably got to get onto that. Anyway, it's been great having you on the podcast. I'm glad you've got away from that relationship.
Thank you.
Look, when did you fall into the lifestyle of the, as the media would call you, the glamorous, caught up in a dialer-dealer lifestyle?
Oh, the designer girl that shops at Kmart, that one.
It must have been a good product you got from Kmart.
Oh, look, the one thing I will take away from all those headlines, like the fact that they called me an events manager, I was like, you know what, I'll take that. Like, they said a lot of bad shit, but they said some good shit as well, so I'll wear that. But look, coming out of that relationship, there was a lot of physical and emotional abuse, but that also meant there was a lot of financial abuse. And so there were so many debts that were put in my name. We were living in eastern suburbs at the time. So again, it was that lifestyle and trying to catch up with it. I mean, I was driving the worst of the worst, like beat up piece of shit car. Wouldn't have been anything more than $2,000. Like, I just didn't fit. I didn't fit in the demographic. And so I had, all these bills now pouring out of my eyes. And I got to this point where, funnily enough, like, I actually started to recognize my worth, and I kicked him out because I was like, you know what? Yuck. Like, this is just, what are we doing after this many years? You have a serious drug addiction. I have now basically, like, developed another drug addiction because of that.
What type of drugs were you taking?
Well, he was on methamphetamine.
Yep.
I dabbled in it from here to every so often. It really wasn't my drug of choice, so my drug of choice, unfortunately, was Xanax.
Yep.
It basically created this false pretense that that's that same feeling I had as a child, that life was amazing.
Yeah.
There was no judgment. No, I didn't care about what anyone else thought. I was me. I was happy. I was carefree. No, that's because I was so off my head that literally nothing mattered. But because I had undiagnosed PTSD, ADHD, ADD, I created the narrative in my head that every time I had a Xanax, everything would calm down.
The world was a beautiful place.
The world, exactly right. It was a beautiful place. And I could compartmentalize all of my life.
Yeah.
I started building businesses. I started doing all of these things for myself because I was no longer procrastinating. I was no longer lazy. I didn't have all of this shit placed upon me. I could finally feel like, oh, this is my saving grace.
Yeah.
No, I was just off my face 24/7. So anyway, this one particular day I realized, yep, he's got that drug addiction. I have this drug addiction. What is going on? This is not it. I'm up to my eyeballs in debt. How can I fix this?
Is it true how many parking fines you had?
Yep.
How much? Because I read the figure and
$40,000.
$40,000 parking fine.
Yeah, still paying it off, state debt.
Oh.
And it speaks to the...
Can I, like, it is a true crime podcast and we're deviating slightly, but I've never had a notorious parking offender. How do you collect $40,000 worth of parking
It
tickets.
just speaks on the level of recklessness.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
Right? And
Yeah.
when you're on things like Xanax or methamphetamine, you don't give a shit about anything. So I would look at these fines and be like, meh. I would pick those $150 parking fines over having to walk, let's say, 4 streets.
That is reckless, isn't it?
Right?
Yeah.
Because you have no respect for the system. You have no respect for yourself. You don't care.
Yeah.
You know, you don't really think that all of these fines, this money, whatever, is going to catch up to you one day. Oh, I'm paying for it now.
Yeah, well,
Do you pay for it back then?
I don't know if
sure
they put people in jail for parking fines, but early in my police career, people that accumulated a lot of parking fines, they could write them off by serving time.
Yeah.
And you would have people turn up at the police station on a Friday afternoon to pay their parking tickets off to get locked up for a couple of days.
No way.
Pay off their parking
Oh,
tickets.
I wish I could run it concurrent, being like $40,000 year and a half. That seems fair.
Yeah.
I wish I could do that.
Well, it's a lot. Anyway, okay, well, we've identified that there is a recklessness there. What about the drug dealing? How did you get caught up in the cocaine?
Yeah, so look, from that and just recognizing that I had all of these bills, and I think I was so young, very early 20s at that point, and I just kicked him out. We're living in a, Bondi Beach front apartment.
Yep.
I'm going, how the hell, am I going to afford anything? I didn't want to admit defeat. I didn't want to run back to my family and basically prove everyone right, saying this is what's happened. Help. I didn't want to ask for help. My parents were even struggling at the time. That's not, you're an adult at that point. You don't want to admit defeat, So anyway, came across some friends, had a friend that said, look, do some things several times, just drop some things off, very minimal, Whole thing was very downplayed. In my mind, I thought, sweet. Every second person in the eastern suburbs at the time does cocaine.
Yeah.
So I was like, it's nothing, whatever. Started doing it. Realized that the operation was a lot bigger than what was played out. But at that point, I was already in it. And I thought, you know what? Stuff it.
Yeah.
There was no gun to my head. I was never forced against my will. I thought, I need to make money. And it sounds like an excuse and it sounds like a cop-out, but when your self-worth and your identity is so minimalized that you're not capable of anything, meaning like my ex at the time would tell me that, who the fuck do I think I am to go work in childcare or to go work traffic control and any normal job?
Yeah.
Who did I think I was? Because everyone was going to judge me because I'm a terrible person. I'm an addict. I'm a this, I'm a that, I'm a slut, I'm a whatever word he could think of that he knew was going to hit home, he used. And so it sounds twisted and it sounds like such an excuse, but I started creating that narrative in my head that I can't have a normal job because no one values me, because I don't value me. I'm a shit. I was a shit person. So I kind of almost belittled myself thinking the only thing that I'm capable of is selling drugs.
Yeah.
Why? Because I didn't have to talk to anyone. I didn't have to do anything. I drove around like I'm a freaking Uber driver and just dropped things off. I didn't even have to look at the customer half the time. So it was a mindless job that I didn't have to think about. I didn't have to overthink. I didn't have to stress out about nothing. And so
And look, just let me stop you there because I've asked you how you got into it, so I'm not putting you up there saying it's an excuse. And you've clarified that you're not making excuses. But it's interesting how someone falls into that trap. So thanks for being honest with us and explaining it. And you're not using anything as an excuse. This is just why you went down that path. I see a lot of people get caught up in drug dealing where, I'm just supplying a bag to a friend. That's not really drug dealing. Well, sadly, technically, that's you are dealing. You're providing an illicit substance to another person. With your dial a dealer, I've always, I'm not naive, but I've always wondered, how does everyone get this cocaine? Where does it all come from? And, in the police, obviously we know, but there's so many people that are involved in it and can pick up the phone up and get something delivered like ordering a pizza.
Yeah, and that's That's the advice that, like, I give to a lot of the young girls that I deal with now is like, although you think you're bulletproof, you will always get caught. This whole dealer, this whole thinking that everything's so under wraps, like, I can't even discredit the amount of work that New South Wales Police put in to figuring out what we were doing.
Yeah. Well, look, with it, I look at the investigation. It's not hard to track.
Oh, no, it wasn't. It was done terribly.
but it's not hard. And I'm surprised it's been allowed to flourish as long as it has. And, with all sorts of people. It's not, we're not looking at this as people that get looked down on. In some industries, it's considered the same as having a beer or a glass of wine.
And that's literally the code word they use for it, is like when they used to text the phones, for example, they'd be like, oh, can I get 3 beers? Like, it's so normalized these days, like that particular drug. And this is why initially when I started doing it, I started telling myself the narrative that it's not that bad because, why? Because it wasn't heroin or ice. It wasn't ruining the lives of people. And yet I would deliver to people 3, 4, 5 times a day, not even small amounts. They're ruining. I'm taking thousands of dollars of them each day. And I would see families. Like, I would see, their kids playing in the backyard when I'm sitting in the lane dropping off coke. Like,
and you've just spent a couple of $1,000s that could have gone to the family and the kids.
And it's sickening. Like, I got to the point where I was like, no, this isn't a party drug anymore. Because to me, in my generation, and to what I saw when I would go out, it was a party drug. It wasn't, even till this day. Like, I've never been hooked on cocaine. I've never, it truly is a rich man's drug. However, it doesn't necessarily mean it's not a problem.
Well, I think that's very true too. And there's not that social stigma to someone doing a line of coke. It's often laughed at, or someone's in the toilet. The standard joke, they've just gone in the toilet and come out with white powder on their nose. But you've seen it, and you've seen the damage that can be done by it, with the money that goes in. And I've seen people that, friends that might have a habit, and they go, it's not really affecting. And I'm thinking how much money they're spending. Like, it's crazy.
And that's what till this day, it still burns me. Like, I will go out to social events, whatever else. I'll go to nightclubs, whatever. And I just see people using the toilets as if there's a swinging door. And, I'll see friends using their last $50, $100 to go thirds in a bag, and I'm going, what for? Like, while I understand the drug, I understand the effects of whatever for what? Like, it brings nothing positive. It just doesn't. It's a means to an end. It's boring.
So with what you were doing, was that your full-time employment? Was there anything else that you were doing? When I say employment, you weren't paying tax, mind you, but anyway.
Should have been.
Yeah.
Could have been by the end of that. But I would always try and dabble in other things. Like, I knew that this wasn't a means to an end for me. I always still try to keep those morals about myself of going, no, like, and this is what every drug dealer tells themselves, or I'll just save X amount and then I'll get out, or I'll do something with this money. And I did. So I would start small businesses, or I would use that money to then go overseas, and then, when I come back, I'm going to start other work. And I did. I would have, other careers. I'd work in hospitality, traffic control, childcare, whatever. But you would always come back to this same thing of, like, I make X amount in one day, so why would I work an entire week if I can make that in one day?
The temptation.
Yeah, and there was I never had, I don't know how to describe it. Like, I was never pulled over for the first couple of months, years, whatever. Never pulled over. I was never in trouble. So I thought, stuff it, whatever. If I can do that even for 1 or 2 days, I'm laughing. So I would kind of balance a few jobs at a time and try and justify it to myself and tell myself, I'm still doing the right thing in one aspect, so it's okay. But then it got to this point several years later where I ended up coming back to it, and I just knew it was wrong. And then the way that the entire operation was being carried out was so poor, and I just thought, I'm literally a pawn in this operation.
I was going to ask you that. Did you get a sense of how easy it would be to take you down on it? And you would be very expendable. And
Oh, I acknowledge that, look, I was just a pretty face. And unfortunately, I was the only female that was available in the eastern suburbs at the time.
Right.
So at first I played on that, knowing how much money I could make. But then I got to a point where it made me sick. And I'm like, you know what? Who's to say if I stepped out of line, or God forbid, you know, I wanted to do something else with my life, what if they wanted to keep me here? What if this is all I'm ever going to amount to? And that really freaked me out. So I think kind of from like that mentality, subconsciously, I started recognizing that this was so wrong, that it's not my life path. I want to get out. And I made so many attempts to try and get out. I would just come up with really shitty excuses like I'm sick or whatever. You forget, like, I'm dealing with men at this point, like men that you don't fuck with. So I didn't know how to handle the situation. So I'm forever coming out with sick days, or I'm going on a holiday, or I need to take days off. And it became very aggressive of like, no, you will work these hours. You will not get off the road until that sale is made or whatever else. And so
I would imagine they don't have HR managers.
No, there was no one to talk to.
Situation.
There was no one to complain to. So I'm going, okay, I can't trust anyone here. Don't know who to speak to. You know, my roommate at the time, poor thing, copped the full brunt of it. I'm waking up every day with anxiety, like a very new emotion for me. Like, it almost felt like someone was stepping on my chest when I'd wake up. And I would always say to, like, she's my best mate till this day, I'm going, I don't know what to do. Like, who do I call about this? How do I, like you said, there was no HR. So what do I do? She goes, you need to get out. You need to be honest with everyone, for starters, because I think I'd only told her and several other people what I was doing. Yeah. To my family, I was, what did I say? Some bullshit. I was either an Uber driver or I was a childcare worker. Right. You know, so I was driving around all the time.
Did they have suspicions?
I didn't think so until I told them. So after this initial conversation with my friend, I thought, you know what? Stuff it. I've had enough. Yeah. I'm living this massive lie. Maybe if I'm honest about everything, the anxiety will lessen. So I went home. I think it was my 21st birthday. I went to my family home that night and we were celebrating my birthday, and I said, look, I've got something I need to tell you. I told them what I was doing, and both of my parents kind of looked at each other and they were like, you know what? We kind of had an inkling that you were doing something wrong. Yeah. We didn't know what it was. But again, they've always given me the kind of, this is your life. Yeah. You're going to make something of it. Not necessarily we trust you, but like, we're here when you need us. So once I told them, they said, okay, fine. There was no, how dare you get out of our house? There was, okay, how are we going to fix this? And they've been like that since I was born, you know? So they saw that I was in a situation, and they said, how are we going to fix this? And I said, look, I don't know. All I can do is be honest, say that I want to leave. I don't know how to get out of it. And so mum and dad were kind of like, just be honest, you know, just do the right thing, da-da-da-da. And I thought, okay, fuck that. Can't do that. Criminal mentality. Here we go. So I actually contacted my ex, that bad ex we were just speaking about. And I said, look, this is what I'm doing. Yep. This is what I need help getting out of. You know, this is someone that didn't fear the police. This is someone that didn't fear anyone in life. And so I knew, although I feared him, he was going to help me out of this situation. Yep. And so, contacted him, said XYZ. He said, all right, this is what you're going to do. You're going to tell them that I have found out about it, that and I lied, saying that he was still actively my partner. Yeah. I said, yep. XYZ, he found out about what I've done, what I'm doing. I can't do it anymore. Yep. I'm sure you understand why. And so that same day, drove the car, the drugs, the money, whatever, left it at the drug house. He was in the car with me, absolutely shitting myself, thinking that these people were inside. They weren't, thank God. But yeah, sent this half-assed text message to the main phone saying that I'm done. And then from there, kind of just held my breath and was waiting for an outcome.
Yep. And what was the outcome? But if you stepped out of that, did they drag you back in?
No.
Well, when did you got arrested? Shortly after that?
Yeah, how's this for intuition? So 2 weeks later,
Yeah.
we all started getting arrested. So there was about, I think there was seven or eight of us in this syndicate, and funnily enough, this anxiety on my chest was intuition and was telling me, get out. And so I'll never forget living in this ground floor apartment in Bondi.
Yep.
I wake up one morning after I told my parents what had happened. I called my mum.
And you dropped all your gear off at
Dropped
that
everything.
stage and thinking you
Yeah.
are going to get out of it.
Everything was done. And
The past comes back to haunt sometimes, doesn't it?
God, karma's a bitch. And everything was fine for a few days. Hadn't heard, of course I was anxious, but hadn't heard anything from the people that were running it, whatever. And I thought, oh my God, maybe this is it. I'm good. Anyway, I wake up one morning. I had a friend send me an article of several of the boys being charged.
These are the people you were working for or with?
Yeah, the people I was working for. And so she sent me this article going, oh my God, is this you? And my heart stopped. And I called my mum instantly and I said, they know, like this is getting real now. But then I tried to justify it and I was like, you know what? They got the kingpin, so maybe I'm okay. And my mum said, just get out of the country. Like, do whatever you can. She goes, this
Good
is...
on mum telling
Right.
you to go
She's a real
run.
one.
Yeah,
She's a straight
that's
G.
that's what mums are for. Yep.
No, she goes, you know what? This is your opportunity. Like, they got the people they needed.
Yeah.
Danny, it's done. Start fresh. Go.
Yep.
So I'll never forget. I can see it so clearly in my brain. I'm sitting on my lounge in front of, so I had two clear sliding doors with blinds, ground level Bondi Beach.
Yep.
I'm booking flights to Bali in my pajamas at like 9 a.m. in the morning. I see these two guys walk past my balcony, stick their heads over, and I was like, oh, okay, didn't think anything of it. Ground floor again. And then I hear a bang on the door. I shit myself, and I thought it was Strata because we were housing a pit bull, but we had told our leasing agents that we had a Chihuahua.
Okay, I'd prefer a pit bull over a Chihuahua.
I agree,
yeah.
But for keeping our
there is a big difference. Yeah.
For keeping a nice tenancy, we were like, oh, you know what, it's just a Chihuahua, it's fine.
Well, you can identify with whatever you want these days, so maybe
he was a
pit
pity
bull identifying as a Chihuahua.
Exactly right.
That could have been it.
Exactly right. So I had sent photos of this Chihuahua with full-blown details to our landlords, and they approved him. So,
a real Chihuahua.
A real Chihuahua. One of our other friends' Chihuahuas.
Not
our
pit
bull.
bull.
Not our
he's
pit
a Chihuahua.
bull. Oh, bless him. But anyway, so yeah, this bang on the door and then an immediate bark. So I'm trying to hold this pit bull's mouth shut.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck, it's Strata. And I looked to my best mate and I said, get rid of him. Like, we're going to get kicked out. Get rid of him. So she's standing in the room with this fully grown pit bull, bless her. And I open the door and sure enough, detectives from Croydon Police, we're here to arrest you. Are you Danielle Hogan? Da-da-da-da. And I didn't even know what to think at this point.
Yeah.
Like, I think I laughed because I was so nervous. I was like, fine. I said, do you know what you're under arrest for? And I said, no idea. And they
lying about the pit bull.
100%. Strata, is that you? And they kind of just laughed it off and said, no, like you're under arrest for supply, this, that, the other. And then, it was kind of just autopilot from there. I remember asking, like, can I at least get out of my pajamas? I still had my coffee cup in hand. I was like, it's 9 a.m. Like, let me get changed, whatever. And so, that was history from there.
Like, we're laughing, but that is it's almost like it's you must have anticipated it was a possibility, but in your ignorant bliss, you go, no, I've got away with it.
God,
but,
not to that degree. Like, it was, they let me get dressed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that was lucky. Like, because sometimes they go, no, you come in, we're taking you as whatever you're wearing, and that might be your pajamas, and it's tough time in prison, but it's a worth time if you turn up in your pajamas.
Oh, it would have been a comfortable time in prison at least. No one told me that I needed like baggy clothes or something. I walked out in the tightest clothes possible, but walking out of my home, there was ABC, 9 News, 7 News, Channel 10. It was relentless from there.
Yeah, well, preparing for the podcast, I had a look at some of the media coverage, and they certainly rolled you out, didn't they?
Oh, it was disgusting. Even the arresting officer, he, like I said before, he actually apologised and said, "We're about to make an example out of you."
Yeah.
And I couldn't for the life of me understand why. And then, several months later, after all of these headlines coming out, I'm going, wow, I'm learning some stuff about myself.
Yeah, well, always believe what you read in the articles.
Yeah.
So at that point in time, you're arrested. It was, I think there were 5 charges. You interviewed, or tell us what happened when you were taken to the police station. Because I think if there's a lesson to be learnt, people often think, okay, it won't happen to me, and they roll the dice or whatever. But I haven't seen anyone that's gone to a police station, been arrested for the first time, where it doesn't impact on them significantly.
Oh, it impacted in ways that I couldn't even fathom at that point. But in retrospect, I'm very grateful now. So, when I was when I was arrested, I was going, what the hell? I'm put in a cell that's literally a meter by maybe 50 centimeters. You can't even stretch your legs out from one side to the other, and for the life of me, I couldn't really understand what was going on or what was going to happen from here. Being in the lifestyle that I was in, I met so many people that have either been to jail before or have, done some pretty interesting things, and maybe they didn't necessarily go to jail. So I'm going, no, I'll be fine, whatever. And so I'm sitting in there, and I was in my mind at that point, I was I haven't done anything that bad, and so I'll never forget, I'm sitting in the interview room. They're preparing to interview me, and 2 male detectives sit down, and all of a sudden, one by one, they start throwing all these pieces of paper in front of me with all this evidence.
Yeah.
And to my surprise, there's 1 drug house, 2 drug house, 3, and I'm I don't know any of this. I had no idea of how big this operation was.
Yep.
And so I'm looking at all this stuff in shock, going, what do they expect me to say to them? Anyway, and then they said, is there anything that you want to add or you want to talk? Let's start this interview. And I was nah, I've got nothing to say.
Yeah.
And they're are you saying that you're you don't want to do the interview? I said, well, yeah, I don't want to do the interview. I said, but also it seems like you know a lot more than what I do.
Yeah.
I couldn't even, there's nothing I could say about the amount of police work they put into this, because from the surveillance,
photos of you and phone records.
Phone records, but they had literally tied, so they had put cameras in the drug house that I was working out of.
Yeah.
But they somehow managed to tie the times that I would walk in the house to the times that I would text the phone to the times that I would leave the house, saying,
"You're fucked."
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
They've got you dead to
They
rights.
had me wholeheartedly, so there was nothing I could do but laugh at that point and be what else can I say? This is, you see it for what it is.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm not about to, make it worse for myself or anyone else. But I was more or less shocked at the amount of work that they had put behind this for the last 3 months.
Yeah.
And none of us had any idea about it. The fact that they had put cameras in a place that we were in 24/7, crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
But that's, it's the ignorance of drug dealers or the people involved in that industry.
That's it.
It's not a hard crime to investigate because people get sloppy and they think it's very hard to capture murderers, and people don't make mistakes. They're conscious of covering up their crimes. But with drug dealing, it's follow the bouncing ball.
Absolutely, and that's the advice that I give now to, any of the young people that I come in contact with that are kind of going down that same path. Is it's you are not invincible. Unfortunately, cops will know and will find out everything. You are not bulletproof. It will always, it's a means to an end. You will always be caught. Yeah. Always.
And a lot of resources get put into it because it is something that, you would have seen the amount of people in prison that have got drug habits or in there for drug-related offences. It's quite high. There was a couple of things in the how it was reported in the media. So it was Strikeforce Northrop that locked you up. So just in case you didn't know that.
Thank you for the ride.
Was established to investigate and target ongoing supply of cocaine within the central metropolitan region. In May 2019, Strikeforce detectives arrested and charged 55 people during a targeted, proactive operation into dialer-dealer services operating through Sydney's CBD and eastern suburbs. During the operations, officers received information about the activities of a sophisticated organised criminal network involved in facilitating and directing the supply of prohibited drugs through a dialer-dealer service. 4 men, 2 aged 28 and 2 aged 29, and 2 women aged 24 and 27 have been charged and remain before the courts. That's how it was reported. Now, that type of crime, I wouldn't imagine you got bail on from the police station.
Not from the police station, no. I was given a Happy Meal instead and said, unfortunately.
Literally a Happy Meal?
Literally a Happy Meal, and I didn't know that was kind of like the thing that they do when you don't receive bail. So yeah. I was adamant. I was like, I had girls in the cells next to me that were like, oh, sis, it's your first crime, you'll be fine, blah, 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 blah. I was adamant that I was going to get bail. Yeah. And then I had the leading, I think it was the leading detective or maybe the chief that came to my cell and just stood in front of me, and he goes, "What do you want from McDonald's?" And I was like, "Oh, this place is mad. Like I'm gonna get a feed. This is cool."
How good's this?
And then I didn't know that was actually signal for, no, you're not leaving tonight. Yeah. We're gonna feed you so that you can go to Surrey Hills tomorrow. Yeah. And that's exactly what happened.
And Surrey Hills is a lovely place, isn't it?
I spent more days there than what the average person should. So I think legally you're only supposed to spend like a couple of days there. I spent maybe a week and a half. I had to shower in front of men. Yeah. I didn't receive phone calls to anyone. It is literally hell in a cell.
Yeah. A lot of people that have been to prison talk about the cells at Surrey Hills, and it's the pits. We might take a break here. There is so much to talk about, and I appreciate your honesty, because what we try and do here is let people understand how you fall into this path. When we get back, we're going to talk about your time in prison, and I've seen enough of that world to understand you going into prison. How old were you at the time?
I think I was 23, 24.
Okay, going into prison. Fairly naive into the ways of the world. It was going to be a hard time.
It was a lot.
What happened to you in prison, how you survived in prison, and how it made you sort of reflect on yourself and turn your life around, and what you're doing now, which I think is, if there's a moral of the story, it's, what you're doing now and the difference you're trying to make, and, offset the bad things that have occurred or that you've done. So
Can't wait.
Yeah, well... I'm taking you to prison part 2, so maybe...
Let's go back to go forward.
Okay, yeah. All right, we'll take a break and be back shortly.
Can't wait. Thanks for hearing me.